Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Are you looking for another inspirational story? Well, my next guest and his family all have autism and ADHD, as well as all having PDA, and they've traveled all over the world. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about them. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today on the show, I'm joined with DJ Dickerson. Welcome to the show, DJ.
Hey, nice to have me.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So, a little bit about me. I come from California, about an hour east of Los Angeles, in a city called San Bernardino. And, growing up, it was kind of tough because, statistic in a way where it was just my mom, gang invested environment, but academically, I was gifted. And so, a lot of times I got in trouble because I didn't feel like I wanted to do the busy work. And it didn't make sense to me. If I could pass the tests and the papers, well, why am I doing homework? And, it was always a constant struggle between me and my mom, between grades are going to get me out of here and you have to conform and kind of have to do the things. And so I was always kind of like an accepted outsider. With the athletes, they always looked at me weird because I wasn't in none of their classes. And, they thought I looked down on them. With the honors roll kids, they always looked at me because I hung out with the athletes. And I just wanted to blend in, not cause a scene, not get in too much trouble. The smart kids got picked on, so I tried to look tough, but it wasn't really my forte. And then after school, I went to college 12 hours north, and I ended up flunking out. And so I needed to kind of buy some time. So I bought a ticket to graduation. And in that graduation, all these kind of self-doubt and self-worth issues kind of started bubbling in. Like, why can't I just do anything right? I understand what I'm here to do. Why can't I just do it? And as I'm listening to the summa cum laude give a speech, I was like, yo, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to speak to people and use my thoughts to change humanity. But what have I done? And at that point, I figured I would do something miraculous. So I went from college flunk out to medical school. And it took me about 10 years to do this. And so I finally got into medical school, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. They didn't let you be creative as long as you conformed. It was part of the good old boys club. Everything was good. And finally, I went up in, Chicago, and I was doing my rotations at Mount Sinai, and I realized the system isn't what I thought it was. And I couldn't see myself having my values get paid for because, I was there to help people. I wanted to make a difference. And, we took my daughter and my wife, and we were like, you know what, we could just travel the world. So we left there. We started going to Mexico, went to Guatemala. My son was conceived. We came back to the States, had my son, and then we went to travel the world again. And it wasn't until we were in Colombia that we kind of realized that our family is a little different. Like, just trying to do the normal thing just wasn't working. It was tough for us to get dressed. It was tough for us to leave the house. Finding food was a nightmare because one would eat something, another one would eat something. One of us were early birds, some of us were late night owls, and it's just, the constant stress and triggers of just being out in the city. And like, this is supposed to be a dream. Like, why is this not everything I thought it would be? And, we kept moving from state or from country to country. And then, finally we were just ready to give it up. And we found out that, my daughter's autistic, I'm autistic, my wife's autistic, my son's autistic. And it was like, oh, that's why it was never going to work the way we were trying. And we were trying to do the Brady Bunch routines, and it just wasn't going to be for us. And then we kind of started to peel it back. And that's when I came up with the idea of the pleasure-led life. And not so much so just to sit and indulge and, eat chocolate bars on the couch every day, but how do you actually enjoy the life that you're living and be present? Not worried about the past, not freaked out about the future, and just be present and let that be the gift. And so we're trying, and we have our good days and we have our bad days, but we've become a lot more forgiving. And so we want to use our experience to kind of help other families who are willing to make that shift and, kind of see the world. But it comes with some struggles when you're all neurodivergent.
So true. So you said when we first started talking, you were late diagnosed. When were you diagnosed?
So I got an ADHD diagnosis in 2016. They said I was inattentive ADHD. Had no clue what that meant. Okay, it just I can't pay attention and I can't sit still. And so didn't really ring any bells for me. 2017, we took my daughter to an autism study at the University of Miami, and they told us she was the role model for the study. So us being silly and having a typical view of life, we were like, cool, she's everything that we thought she was. Okay, she's normal, whatever that means. And so things just started like not really working out. And so in about 2021, my wife was noticing some things were just off. And so she went into an autism deep dive. And then 2022, we reached out to a specialist, and she did an over the phone interview and kind of gave us some exams. And that's when we all found out that we were all autistic. So 2022.
Now, before you got diagnosed, did you really feel like you were outside looking in at your life? And then once that diagnosis happened, did you kind of feel like, oh shit, this explains my whole entire past life, why I've been the way I have?
Actually, yeah, because for a lot of it, my mom used to joke all the time that I'm gonna get you tested. Like I'm probably sure I can get a check from you, and it makes you feel a type of way, but you're not really sure, and so you push forward and you want to like be just like everybody else. But I wasn't. I thought different.
Mhm.
I saw the world different. I interacted different. Like when I was done with the conversation, I could just walk off. Other people thought that was extremely strange, but we no longer have anything to exchange with each other. So why am I going to stand here? It was kind of difficult to make friends because I could shape shift enough to where people could trust me enough to hang out with me, but I wasn't the first to be invited. I wasn't the first one on people's minds. And, some of them actually preferred to leave me out. Then when I got diagnosed, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not a fan of small talk. I'm not gonna hold back. Like if I feel it in my mind, I'm probably gonna say it out of my mouth. And for some of them, that's hurtful, but I'm just telling my truth. And so I had to learn that people say they want honesty, but they don't really mean it. And so there was a very big disconnect to me because I'm a very big say what you mean what you say kind of person. And I actually mean it when I say that, and not a lot of people do. So that has let me know that what I have to kind of gauge what interactions that I want to involve myself in, and that's exhausting. So I kind of just stopped hanging out with a lot of other people. But I have realized other neurodivergent individuals, there's like a click there. We either really like each other or can't stand each other. But for the people who really like me on the spot, happen to be neurodivergent as well.
I mean, I get you so much about that. Say what you mean and mean what you say type of person because I am that way as well. I mean, it's got me in so many jams, especially with family where, you get that thought into your head and you just can't stop yourself and all of a sudden you just say it. And it's gotten to the point where I've been yelled at, screamed at. I remember this one instance. I'm volunteering at the museum, our planetarium out here, and we're doing the overnight party thing. And there's this elderly couple working with us, and this thought just pops into my head. I see him standing there, and the music's blaring. So I turn to her and her husband, and I go, "Hey, there's a new dance out now. It's called Standing Still." And she laughed a little, and she's like, "I'll get you read in the long run." And I go back and I tell my supervisor, who's also autistic, the next day about that. And she's like, "It's a good thing you told me because also the reason she said what she did is because she's a teacher and she understands that you didn't mean it as a harmful thing." But it's gotten me in trouble so many times with people. I mean, I'm also a confrontationalist. And if somebody's got a problem with me, say it to my face.
Right.
Don't go to my supervisor and tell me because they'll wait a week before they come to me and tell me. I can't correct my own situation if you wait that long.
And then it's out of left field, right? You're like, wait,
Yeah.
what? You were mad about that? I didn't know. See, I had one of those situations in medical school where they were like, how do you feel about, the people around you becoming doctors? Some of these people I wouldn't trust to give me water. I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't say that, huh? And then it was a whole thing about how people's characters, and I was like, oh, okay, okay. So don't ask me questions you don't want answers to.
I mean, that's the biggest thing is people don't understand us. I mean, I've often joked that there should be a manual that helps describe autism to people who don't understand how our minds work.
I, I think the thing is, what society says they want out of people is what we actually are. And we don't understand that it's not black and white, that there's areas of gray. And I tell people all the time that I hate operating in gray because now I got to wonder, is this appropriate? Is it not appropriate? And then all this second guessing and extra activity that's going on in here, like there's already so much that's going on in here. I don't need extra layers about is it socially appropriate?
I mean, tell me about it. I mean, my mom always told me, my problem is I don't think left or I don't think right. I think right down in that middle, in that gray area. So it's like there's only right and there's only wrong, but I don't see everything else. She's like, it's like when you're someone's telling a story and you know they messed up somewhere within that story, and you're like, excuse me, you made a mistake in that story. And then they just look at you like, couldn't you wait till afterwards? And you're thinking to yourself, why? So you can look like a fool? No. My job is to
Right.
correct you because I know I'm right and you know you're right, but my job is to sit there and tell you you're wrong.
So I take it people probably hate getting into arguments with you, right? Because you recall to the day and to the time where technically what you said was da 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 da. And I'm telling you you're wrong because da 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 da. And then
Yeah.
why do you have to take it so literally? Because that's what you said. I'm just going off what you said.
Yeah, I mean, people always say that we lack empathy, but it's the other way around. We have too much of it. And I've always said we carry it in our sleeves. That's why we're so emotional all the time.
And I think that was hard for me to understand because people stated that I was heartless and emotionless, but
No.
I felt it was the polar opposite, that I had so much love and genuine care for the people that I came into contact with that I actually had to learn how to harden myself because I was giving so much of myself to everybody that I came across. And then I realized like it's not going to be reciprocated. And at times you start to break down and you're like, well, is it me? And then you're like, no, actually, it's not me. It's just people don't mean what they actually say. And so that's hard for us to understand.
I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I have ever heard was from a YouTuber who was once asked, how do you deal with all the hate comments in your YouTube? And she's like, the minute she stopped caring about what people thought of her is the minute she started living her life. And I spread that to everyone I know who's autistic. If you want to go out and enjoy your life, don't give a rat's ass what people think of you.
Right.
Because if you do, you're gonna wind up hurting yourself more because you're letting your feelings get to you.
Right. And then you have to tie it to what it means. So along our journeys, I've created something that I call the pleasure-led life. And for a long time, like I was really trying to figure out how to actually give something that had major value to people. And then I realized that there's a space, right? I call it a gap between when you think something and when action happens. And when you can master that gap, because that gap is where desires, fears, social expectations, conformity, panic, so all those are in. And when you kind of really start to understand whose thoughts are what, because a lot of us get conditioned, right? You can't say that, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we're not really moving how we should be moving in the world because you take a step and you're like, well, is this my step or is this someone else's step? Or what will somebody think about the step that I just took? Like, is this appropriate for the step that I'm taking now? And then you kind of start to notice that everybody's making strides in their dreams and the things that they want to make happen because they don't have that emotional baggage, right? They don't have that years long conditioning of this is how you should behave in front of other people. So like I'm attempting to help neurodivergent entrepreneurs who have a desire, who have a dream, who have a goal, like figure out what's authentically yours. Not for the praise, not for the external validation, not to feel worth it to other people. What goals do you genuinely have? And then how do you pursue those and remain in alignment with your values? Because for the autistic people that I've met, the moment they get out of alignment, they shut down. They can mask for so long, but they cannot continue a career that's built off of lies or
Yeah.
distortion or deceit.
Mhm. I've talked with a lot of people, and a lot of people told me they have either a son or a husband or a daughter that when they come home from masking, they are exhausted and they don't want to talk with anyone, and they lock themselves in their room in the dark for 45 minutes to an hour before they can literally talk to somebody.
Mhm. And like, just imagine, like, we see the world so beautifully different. Like, just imagine if our kids were given the permission and the green light to just entrench themselves in the way they view the world. Now, there's some consent and safety things that every human has to learn, right? Like, you can't just go violating people's boundaries because you're excited about what you see. But when it's creative and it's expression and it's like a unique view to a world problem, I believe like we should encourage, our autistic and neurodivergent family and kids to just paint the world the way they see it because, I think that's where innovation comes in.
Now, do you deal with any sensory issues?
For me, it's light. Light, the sunlight,
Okay.
the the luminescent lights. Everybody was doing the ring lights for Zoom and stuff like, and I can't. Like, I instantly get nauseous. I have vestibular issues, so like, it was once upon a time I could backflip and roll everywhere. Now I start to roll, and it feels like I've been drinking all night.
Oh God.
And I don't like my hands wet, like wet and sticky hands. So I enjoy cooking, but I prefer to cook with gloves on. Um, the idea of cleaning a bathroom with the same rag that you're going to reuse and stuff like that. So a lot of germ stuff I have issues with, a lot of lights. I typically don't have sounds, but when I have a migraine, I get a lot of sound issues. But yeah, those are the major ones for me.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the pleasure of life and how it got started and what your mission is with that.
So, funny enough, when we were in Ecuador, we realized we wanted to travel, but income was kind of a thing. We were cooped up and we weren't really sure what we were going to do. So, I decided to be a diplomat because I love learning languages and it's really exciting to me. So, I was like, hey, why not go to a place that's going to pay you to learn languages and travel? So, we went to Peru where we could take the exam. And then I found out that our visa was running out. So, we couldn't go there. So, before we left, I was in Cusco and we went to the Sacred Valley and then we did an ayahuasca ceremony. And in that came a download of pleasure is more than just reward. It's a gift of the divine meant to guide you to your truest intentions. And couldn't figure out what exactly that meant. And then I kind of started to realize, you ever really enjoyed something, like really enjoyed something and time stood still? And at the same time, you really hated the idea of something and time grinded as slow as nails on a chalkboard. And I was like, well, what's the difference between the two? One, you're supposed to do, right? One tells you you have to endure it, like this suffering and sacrifice for glory. I don't know where that came from. But what if we pivot that? What if everybody actually did what they enjoy? And especially in today's internet age where you have access to people and communities, the things that you want to do, people would light up with. And so now I'm helping people to express the desires and the things that they have, whether it becomes this mogul of an empire or it's just a hobby. My goal is to help neurodivergent entrepreneurs and business owners grow as a person because, we've all heard you got to grow as a person for your business to grow. But like, I feel like who you are is far more important than what you do. And we're in a society where everybody brags about what they do, right? I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that. And for some reason, that's supposed to give you respect. But there's douchebag doctors, okay? And there's douchebag lawyers. So, like, when's the last time you ever went to somebody and be like, who are you? And have them explain themselves to you? We really don't. And so that's the paradigm that I wanted to flip, to allow people to just show their beautiful, authentic, genuine self, and then put that into what they do, because I feel like that'll go a lot further than I'm pretending to be this so you can think that I have it all put together. And
Yeah.
so you don't got to mask in your business. That means less, right? Just like you said, when people are masking when they're out and about. Now imagine doing that in your work, out in community. When do you ever have time to actually be yourself? So my goal is to kind of peel back all the onions to the layer, figure out who you are, learn how to look yourself in the mirror, and then build relationships from that standpoint. And then instead of trying to be successful, find fulfillment. Like, do the things that actually make you feel good, where like you are enriched and you enjoy doing what you're doing, and it's not a chore. You don't have to drag yourself. Doesn't mean it's not gonna suck sometimes. Life just hands you a shit sandwich from time to time, but that's just part of the glory.
How's it been?
There is, some really cool things. So I happened to be with, my first client decided to get sober, and that wasn't really what she was going for. She was trying to figure out how to pick a message and how to develop herself and how to, build a budding career. And we slowed it down. It was just like, okay, well, tell me, what are your core values? Just 3 to 5. And she started to define her values. And it's like, okay, well, what's the one thing that you're the most proud of? And what do you want to continue to nourish? She's like, her self-respect. And so her thing was that she couldn't maintain that and still be sober and not be sober. And so we had asked, how long it has been since you've had a drink? It had been 3 years since she had gone a day without being drunk. And so we started talking about, what she strived for and what she wanted and how. And so the first thing we did, we said goodbye to the alcohol. She poured it down the drain. And 20 days later, she met someone, and they're having a thriving relationship and they're happy, and like she looks like a different person. And so that was just an amazing experience. I had another we went and did a deep dive, and she was kind of trying to figure out what she wanted to do. And we just set it aside. Instead of making your day overwhelming and having to do the 14-hour grind so you can put it on Instagram to show everybody that you're working to the bone, what do you enjoy? And little by little, she started doing more hobbies and activities. And you think that would stop time from working. But now she works and is more efficient and more effective because there's more in her gas tank. And then, the carrot and the stick. I don't think the carrot and the stick works for the autistic community,
No, it doesn't.
because too much discipline, too much stress, too much pressure. You know what we do? We go into a cave, we never come out, the world won't see us, you won't know I failed, and I'm just sitting here sulking in misery. So I do it the other way around. Let's lace our path to victory with small indulgences, senses, smell goods, feel goods, taste goods, and that's just the motivation to continue going forward.
That would kind of be like your message of pursuing status over values then, am I right?
Right,
So it's
right,
more like do the things you love and that will bring you more joy. And then that joy brings you happiness. And then you take that happiness with you to work and you are more productive.
right. Because you can only wear a face for so long, right? And many of us who are late diagnosed, undiagnosed, how long have you been wearing that mask? So how long have you been going on a negative gas tank, running on fumes? Eventually the car is going to break down. And so you see it in the midlife crises, you see it in a lot of the other things where people just don't have it anymore to fake it. And it's disastrous for themselves, for their families, for their businesses. And so instead of put the focus on the achievements and the accolades, just grow, enjoy life, be authentic, and then let that kind of shower into all other areas of your life, and watch how much your life becomes fulfilling and enjoyable.
I mean, that's the one thing I think a lot of autistic people don't realize is they want a job, yes, but the problem is you get to that job and you just burn yourself out trying to make the employer happy and not realizing I need a job that understands me, one, but I also need to balance that with the happiness of my hobbies. Something that
Hmm.
get you need to have happiness to give you joy, and then you need that joy to transfer over to your job so you bring that happiness.
Right. Because I use the cup analogy. You know, everybody says you got to fill your cup. But if you have a cup and you pour out of it and it's empty, there's really nothing else to pour from. But if you take a cup and put it on top of another cup and you just pour into it, eventually the overflow will fill the cup. And you still have everything you put into yourself. And so, like, I like to tell people to give from the overflow and not from the actual cup itself.
There was a great story I came upon about similar to what you're talking about with a cup, about a teacher. I don't, you've probably heard this before. A professor walks into his room, holds up a picture, and goes, "How much does this weigh?" And his students are giving him a pound, 5 ounces, 10 ounces, and he goes, "No, you're all wrong. It doesn't matter how much it weighs. It matters how long you hold it. The longer you hold it, the more it hurts. You hold it for a minute, it doesn't bother you. Hold it for an hour, your arm starts to ache. You hold it all day, you feel paralyzed. Learn to put it down. The minute you put it down, your life continues on. You learn to balance your life and everything you love, and learn to take that stress and put it aside, and then the minute you put your stress aside, your life begins to go back to normal."
See, that's beautiful. And I think because many autistic people are always told to be someone else,
Yes.
that they've never really developed a genuine interest. Because I used to be so jealous of the kids at 6, 7, 8 years old who knew what they wanted to do for the rest of their life. You know, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. Like, how do you know what you're going to do 15 years from now? And so now that I've kind of started to really dive into my interest, I can see where, those long-term passions come from. They're unorthodox according to a lot of people, like I want to step foot on all 7 continents. Why? Just because.
Yeah.
No particular reason. And I enjoy doing it with my kids and allowing them to kind of find their interests and do their thing. My wife, she's into 70,000 hobbies all the time. And so just why not? Why not? Life is short. If you need to find a job in life, you can find one. But like, how many people walk through life and have no passion, have no spark? They're just empty shells who are just hoping to make it one day.
I mean, that's kind of almost the purpose of my book about stepping out of your comfort zone, is because there are a lot of us out there who get one negative experience in our life, and then we build this bubble around ourselves and build this wall, and yet we don't see the world past that wall. The minute you take that wall down and you step outside, the world reveals itself.
Mhm.
And what people need to realize is one negative experience is one negative experience. You can change that experience by going back and doing it again and trying something new. And I had someone tell me that. He's like, he went to a restaurant, he ordered a meal, he didn't like it, but he didn't let it stop him. He went back the next day, tried something new, and he liked it a lot. I mean, that's the problem. We are a world of that focuses so much on the negative
Yeah.
that we don't see the positive side of things.
And I like to think perspective is everything, right? There's a lot of life's cards that are out of our control. But the way you choose to play your hand is forever in your control. And so, you look back and if you've ever had like a bad breakup or a job that let you go or, a painful experience, but if you play out the experience in its entirety, sometimes it's one of the best things that ever happened to you, and so we get caught up, I guess, looking in the rear view rather than the windshield. And so sometimes you just get so fixated because as crazy as it is, the past is really just a memory. The future is only imagined. But we spend most of our time there because that's why people have regret. That's why people are anxious and stressed. You're in one or the other, and neither exist. And so it's just about being present, being grounded, enjoying the now because the presence is the gift.
One of the biggest problems is, and we've mentioned this briefly, is when you're autistic, you want a job, but you don't think, is this job going to be right for me? Do they understand autistic people? Are they going to work with me? Are they going to help me? No, you just want a job because you want the money, you want the camaraderie of talking with fellow course co-workers, but then you get that job and all of a sudden all the burden of all that work comes piling on. And what happens? You get overwhelmed and the work doesn't know what's going on. And they're like, okay, we can't deal with this. We're going to have to let you go.
Right.
And
I've been
I had a friend that happened to him. He had a job, he loved it. He got piled on work and they said, we can't deal with it. They let him go.
So I worked a lot of social service work, right? And the thing about social service work is they give you, you get paid for 40 hours, but you're really working 80 hours a week because you're dealing with people's lives, right? So am I supposed to not answer your phone call because I'm not getting paid, but you know, you're in a domestic violence situation? Like, no, I'm gonna talk to you and I'm gonna care about this thing. It wasn't that part of the job that I couldn't handle. It was the daily barrage of paperwork.
Mm.
And so, you know, you miss one day, you're like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Then no problem. And then you miss tomorrow, you're like, oh, no problem. I'll do it tomorrow. And then you look back, you're like, I have 4 weeks of reports to do, and that is a mountain of a workload. And I'm gonna spend 8 hours trying to just do all the work. And you just get caught in this shell and you just can't do anything and shut down. And so eventually the paper trail follows you, and they're like, yeah, we like you as a person, but we gotta let you go.
Mhm.
And that was pretty much every job.
Now you're in Brazil. What is it like for you living in Brazil being autistic? Have you found like an autistic community that helps support you and your family?
I would have to say this is the most autistic friendly place I have ever seen. They have preference lines for autistic individuals. They have parking spots. Um,
Wow.
they allow you, so like even if you're having a meltdown, they people will just kind of like, what do you need? Do you need water? Do you need space? What do you? And so it's, my guess would be because it's an older community and they're having children later, then I think they're kind of expecting some of it. But it's a lot of care. It's a lot of, they have autistic centers. I mean, a lot of it's ABA, so I'm kind of on the fence about how I want to interact with it. But for the most part, they just let kids be kids and they let adults be adults as long as you're not actively harming anybody. People just kind of let you be.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're on the fence about ABA, but ABA, I can tell you, has grown and changed from what people used to see it as.
I mean, so that'd be on me to kind of see some of the differences. Um, I, I was a psych major in college, so I'm always kind of like iffy about, you know, when people start playing with your minds in the research because they usually have motives. But I mean, I definitely have to check out some of the new approaches. I'm attempting to utilize the pleasure of life to be a low demand lifestyle for, you know, people with PDA, because I've got a PDA family. There's
Mm.
four of us, and all four of us have PDA. So attempting to have a life that's productive, you know, but pleasure led. We have our ups and downs. Sometimes we're good, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we want compliance because as a parent, who doesn't want the kid to listen to them, right? But I got to check it out. I have to see what some of the updates are.
Now, being an autistic who is PDA, what is life like for you? Especially since you've moved around so much.
Um, I don't do well in some of the situations because in the countries, when you're a foreigner, you're kind of targeted. And so they do things that are obviously slanted. And so it really grinds my gears, but I don't want to get, you know, I stick out. Every country we've been to so far, every place that we've been, I knew I stuck out when we were in Colombia and I was in the center of the square. Our driver was due back in another half hour, and he just called me, DJ. Uh-oh. But it's it has its challenges because, you know, food's a thing. I'm more open with the food choices. My family is a little bit more closed, so we have to slowly go try one restaurant at a time, and we have to slowly, because cooking is its own set of thing. Because one country has one thing, another country has another thing. Sometimes when we're in the Airbnbs, this has a kitchen you can actually save stuff up and cook in. This one is like, it's been a roller coaster. It's been interesting. At times it's stressful, but I have to say I've loved my experience. It's been very unique.
Now, being someone who's autistic, what is it like? I mean, traveling all around. I mean, I've talked with one woman who literally, her and her husband picked up everything and moved cross country to Spain. What is it like living in Brazil, being autistic? I mean, you say they're a little bit more open for autistics, but have you found an actual community of people who are autistics that you can share your life with?
Have not, no, because we finally just got semi-stable where we're at. Before it was like, you get this Airbnb for a month, you have this Airbnb for 2 months. So like you're in one place, and then essentially as soon as you get there, you're planning to get to the next place.
Mhm.
And when we were traveling from country to country, that was tough because
Wow.
my son, he doesn't like to travel. So
Mm.
he gets in a seat, and I'm officially those parents with the kid who's kicking and screaming the whole ride. And I'm like, he likes the vocal stem, so just out of nowhere, he's shrilling at the top of his lungs. And for a long time, that was like one of the most nerve-wracking things because, like, because in the States, it's like, yo, control your kid, get him to shut up. Out here, they just happen to be a little bit more friendly. They're uncomfortable, and you can see the looks, but they don't necessarily say anything. They just kind of tolerate it. And so it's nice because when nobody makes a scene, he can kind of vocal stem and then he's over it once he gets done with it. And then we kind of go back to what we're doing. This is a place where my daughter can actually run off a little bit because she gets overstimulated and she just likes to escape, right? Her
Yeah.
immediate is flight. And when we're in Mexico City, terrible. Okay. Like everything you could probably think of that was going in my head was going through my head when my daughter would run around the block in Mexico City. But here, no, I feel a little better. The parents won't necessarily call them out, but they'll let you know, like, your kid's right here. She's okay, but she's right here. And so, personally, don't have the community, but the community has embraced us enough, and we stick out. So, they definitely know we're who we are.
Now, what is the language barrier like? Especially, I mean, as someone who's autistic, the language barrier has got to be tough.
I am actually pretty good at picking up languages. So I enjoy learning the language just because it's a challenge. For my wife, it's a little more difficult because she's like, I just started getting good at speaking in English. Okay, now I got to speak Portuguese. It does become challenging because there's times where you're speaking to people and people are trying to tell you jokes, and it's like, and then they kind of give you a pass because they think it's a language barrier. But you're like, even if we spoke the same language, like clearly, I don't think you understand. There's a lot of emotional things that I'd be missing regardless, because that's just how I'm wired. But thank you for giving me the benefit of the doubt. It does make it difficult sometimes when it's like bureaucracy, like politics type stuff. Fortunately, there hasn't been any like law enforcement run-ins that I had to deal with. No angry mobs or people trying to rob me or anything like that. So that's been nice. But it has its challenges, but for the most part, they are well received for attempting to speak the language. A lot of intentional practice as well.
Now, how is your pleasure life doing? Have you built up a client base, and what is your success rate going on right now?
So I've had about 4 clients.
Mm.
They've all achieved what they wanted to. We got down to core values. We figured out what their immediate goal is that they wanted to work for and how they envision getting to those goals. And then we just kind of check in to make sure that the who is the priority and the what will follow. And so we've just been continuing to follow that up. But my thing is still to continue to be a speaker, and so I'm finding myself to get on stages so I can spread the message.
Now, is Brazil your end point? I mean, are you happy there? You and your family, you're not going to move elsewhere, or do you plan
Ah,
to move?
we'll probably move.
It's the
In the
ADHD
night,
in you.
yeah. initially when you go to a place, there's the wow factor of like this food's
Mhm.
so good, this is so great, this activity is so cool. And then you get the cooling off period where it's like, I don't want to eat here anymore. I don't like this anymore. This is getting on my nerves. And then there's that last little part where it's like, but you know about this place.
Mhm.
And so, we kind of have some spots in Asia that we want to hit and try out. And so we're like, you thought Portuguese was a language barrier? Because at least we had a little bit of Spanish in our back pocket. Like, wait till we get to the East Asian languages and
Oh,
then see
yeah.
how that goes.
I mean, one of the countries I know you may want to try, maybe in a little bit of an expensive flight, is Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Australia, I've talked with the assistant minister of autism, and they do things really well with autism. I mean, they have entire things. They even have a whole course that is if you want to work with autistics in college and afterwards, that's the last course you need to take. But they work. I mean, she told me a story about how they had this autistic boy who was working in this grocery store and the lights were too bright and the sounds of the cash register were bothering him. And they said, "Hey, can you do something?" And they talk to the people and they say, "Well, we need to bring in an electrician and a mechanic." And they did. They lowered the lights and turned off the noises of the cash register. Not only did it help them, but it brought in more business.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I
So,
mean, it's
go
it's 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 definitely on the list of places to go. My wife has been looking at it, and I've seen some of the speaking stuff out there, and it's. I never knew that it was very as autistic friendly as you described.
Now, what is it like going up and giving speeches in front of people? I know a lot of people have fears, especially autistics, because it's that fear of just talking in front of millions of people. What is that like for you? I mean, I want to have that experience.
So there's this unique rush, right? So you plan, you have this message, you have this idea, these stories that you want to hit. And then there's the moment, right? You're introduced, the floor is yours, and there's this silence. And in that silence, you understand that all that you prepared for and all that you're excited to do is about to start right now. And so there's this anticipation, this excitement, but this performance that you get to put on. Because normally, I'm reserved, I'm in my own lane, but here, this stage is for me. It is mine, and it's a connection. I think a meeting of the minds is like a bridge to the soul. And I think one of my favorite looks when I know like this is where I'm meant to be is that person who's kind of like and they're like, huh, oh, and then they get that confused dog look, like, oh, all right, here we are. And so you bring them up, you bring them down, and then I don't really want to be a motivational guy. I want to be a transformational guy where it's impact and movement rather than rah rah. And so when you see the wheels turning and you see people like really like digging down into the depths of themselves, there's just like this give back to you and it fills you up with energy. And don't get me wrong, okay? After the show or after the speech, I am exhausted because I haven't given everything I had for this moment, and then I need to recharge.
As someone who wants to do this, what advice do you have for me who wants to go up and give talks about everything?
So people are very much a what can you do for me? So I would practice telling stories in a way that give a message to other people through your experience. Because there's this fine balance that you have to have between it's just an autobiography of your life, great for you, like I don't understand your experience, or who are you to preach to me? And then there's this messy middle in between where it's like something as simple as, so I had a dog who was always fighting me. And, there was like this dread that every day that I went to go take this dog out, that here we go. He's gonna run around. He's gonna try and bite the neighbors. He's gonna try and bite the people walking to me. And it was one day that I realized, you know what? My fear is projected onto this dog. Have you ever had one of those moments where you realize that you're projecting onto it and your reality is meeting exactly what you thought it was gonna be? So I took a second and I was like, you know what? What am I actually afraid of? I'm afraid of the embarrassment. I'm afraid of the shame. I'm afraid people think I can't control my dog. So then I changed my outlook, I changed my perspective. And in those moments, I said, hey, you know what? This is an activity where I get to bond with my dog. And it was that moment of love, that moment of trust that made me realize, you know what? When we come together, we can do anything. Now, have you ever had a moment where you decided that, you know what? We're in this together. It's not about me, it's about us. And so that's just a story about telling your dog, but it's the emotional highs, the emotional lows, and then you cement it with, now what about you?
Now, oh, that's impressive. That's very impressive. We'll end this with, where can people find out more about you and online?
So they can go check out my blog at apleasureledlife.com. You'll find some blogs that I have written up just because I'm sharing my experience and my life. They can find me on Instagram at pleasureledlife.com/IG. And if I would love to have them come join my group of Facebook at Pleasure Led Entrepreneurs. But check out the site, find some things out, get to know me on the journey, and I would love to be a part of their growing journey as well.
Now let's end this with, I know you've always got you have great stories. With one great story that you remember.
So, in regards to what, just in general,
In
or
general, in life. Something that's happened that's this is like a wow moment for you in your life.
so I remember it started in 2012. I flunked out of school and I decided that I was gonna do something great, right? I was gonna go from medical school to or from dropout to medical school. And it took me about 10 years. I was sleeping in my car. I was doing the most. I did all the sacrifice, all the glory things. I finally got into medical school. I'm doing the things. And I start to ask myself, like, is it selfish of me to spend time with my family? Or is it selfish of me to not spend time with my family when I could save someone else's? And this turmoil went back and forth and back and forth. And finally, when I realized like your medicine just wasn't for me, I had a call with the attending. It was one of the doctors, and he said he could help me. But he was like, right now, you're trapped because of the time spent and the money owed. And I'm thinking to this myself, like, I'm about to get on a plane to go to Mexico to spend every day with my wife and my daughter. How am I trapped? And it was at that moment that I realized, oh, I'm different. I'm different. Like this moment, this life that I get to enjoy, like that means more to me than some perceived status, some amount of like money or whatever. Because there's one thing that I learned while I was in medicine. The goal to climb up the hierarchy of medicine is to turn a blind eye. But how long can you turn a blind eye before that really becomes your perspective? And for me, I wasn't willing for that to be the way I saw the world. And so I was more ready to walk away than to compromise my value, my dignity, and my sovereignty. And that's when I knew that, you know what, I'll be all right. Don't know how, don't know where, don't know why. But at that moment, I felt the most comfortable in the uncertainty, in the chaos. The security and the safety all felt like an illusion, but it was worth it because now I'm living a life that most people dream about, right? You get to travel the world, spend time, see things. There's parts that nobody tells you about, like being ripped off by the people because you're American and whatnot. But it's a beautiful place, it's a beautiful life, and if anybody is wanting to experience it, I say go for it.
I think that's one of the biggest things is we don't realize we're different than the rest of the world. And the world doesn't realize that. They don't realize we see things so much differently, where most neurotypicals only see inside the box. We see outside and everything else. That's why we are such good problem solvers. That's why we make better programmers if we're logical, or designers if we're creative.
Right. And you know, speaking of that, like I should have known that my daughter was a bit different when you would give her a coloring sheet and
Hmm.
she turned it over because she preferred the blank back part of the coloring book. I was like, never seen
Wow.
that before. Never seen that since. But I'm like, all right. And very creative soul.
I mean, I've learned so much about autism and everything, especially the fact that there's two brain sides. There's the left or the right. Either you're creative or you're logical. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what I was until my friend said to me, you're the creative side. This way you're able to come up with designing all these different things and your podcast. I'm like, yeah, but I don't get logic like programming. He's like, yeah, but you get logic like in life. That's more important than programming.
Mhm. You know, and we decided to not go the traditional schooling route,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everybody is like education, education, education. I'm like, no, 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 no. See, like I've done the highest of education you could do. Okay. There's a difference between academics and education. Like I'd much rather my kids learn life skills, right? How to cook for themselves, how to grow food, how to, you know, interact with people, how to trade, how to barter, versus do they know all 50 states in the United States, all 50
Yeah.
states and all 50 capitals? Like, no, now everybody has a smartphone and AI is going to take over that anyway. So what do they need to learn that for? And, you know, that comes to what you're saying is like we view things so differently. Like I wanted to do the retire when we got old, and when my wife was like, "So you want to travel when you're old?" That doesn't make that doesn't make any sense. Then you're gonna be getting off the airplane talking about your hips hurt, your back hurt. You're not gonna want to go do anything. It's like, wouldn't you rather do it while you're younger? I never thought of that. And I just noticed like when you're in a room full of autistic individuals who have become comfortable with their style of thinking, you come to a lot of those moments like, oh, I never thought about it like that. And it's a beautiful thing if you're willing to accept it.
I mean, that's so true. I mean, we think in such a vivid way in that we do get comfortable in our own skin in our own way of thinking that we don't think about things like how our future, how it's going to be when we're older and traveling with age and our body aches and everything else and being on the plane for 12 hours and how our backs are going to kill us when we get off and everything like that. No, we think about here and now where your wife is like, oh yeah, but what about when you're older, you're gonna get off that plane. I mean, we hear stories about couples who live on cruise ships for the rest of their retirement. But how, but for us, I think that's gonna be boring.
Right. Although I did think about the semester at sea for a few times just to travel around the world and learn a bunch of new things. That could be interesting. Wait till the kids get older.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show, DJ. That you are an amazing person.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Not a problem. So I'm Reed Miles. That was DJ Dickerson, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.